Lin Jing took 2 steps forward and arrived beside the stele. This stele had been damaged by someone unknown. Its upper half had already broken off and vanished. Of the lower half, Lin Jing could only make out the 2 characters, "this place." The rest was no longer there. Turning his head, Lin Jing looked again at the stone platform built up from large rocks. From a message left by the Lin family's ancestor, Lin Jing knew that to leave, one had to reach the summit of these steps. At the top of the stone platform was the teleportation array to leave Immortal Crossing Island. Of course, the Lin family ancestor hadn't been able to reach the top and hadn't seen the teleportation array with his own eyes. He had also received this information from elsewhere. Moreover, the Lin family ancestor had left a warning not to attempt to force one's way through recklessly. Because within the trial grounds, bans and restrictions were everywhere. A moment of carelessness could trigger a chain reaction of these prohibitions, and it might turn the entire trial grounds into a deadly battlefield. And the people within the trial grounds, needless to say, would not be spared. Now, with his condition not at its best, Lin Jing intended to return to the system space first to recuperate. At the same time, he wanted to see if being inside the trial grounds had any effect on entering the system space. Afterward, Lin Jing silently thought to himself, "Enter system space." After a moment of the scenery shifting, Lin Jing found himself within the system space. Immediately, countless streams of spiritual power surged towards him, rapidly replenishing the spiritual energy that had depleted within the trial grounds. Lin Jing didn't immediately heal his injuries. Instead, he summoned the system and entered observation mode. He wanted to see what exactly was at the top of the mountain. After entering observation mode, when Lin Jing looked towards the trial grounds again, there appeared to be no change inside. Lin Jing then controlled the observational viewpoint and continued his exploration. However, when Lin Jing tried to explore the mountaintop, he discovered something extremely abnormal. It was as if the stone platform, which should have been right in front of him, couldn't be explored no matter what he did. It was as if the stone platform didn't exist at all. After pondering for a while, Lin Jing decided that it was better to heal first. After recovering from his injuries, he would climb the trial steps. After his reflection, Lin Jing exited observation mode. Inside the system space, he sat cross-legged and began to heal his injuries. The injuries were not severe, so Lin Jing didn't take any elixir medicine. For hours later, Lin Jing's injuries were healed, and his condition had recovered. Thereafter, Lin Jing left the system space. Back within the trial grounds, Lin Jing looked around before stepping decisively onto the staircase in front of him without any hesitation. Just stepping onto the first step, Lin Jing felt his body suddenly become much heavier, and innumerable pressures squeezed him from all directions. This sudden onslaught of pressure almost caused the unprepared Lin Jing to kneel. And this was not all. In addition to this pressure, a majestic divine sense pressure struck, forcing Lin Jing to gather his divine sense to resist forcefully. Along with the pressure from all sides and the divine sense pressure, from the front came a strong force trying to push Lin Jing down the steps. Feeling this pressure, Lin Jing couldn't help but frown. He had already known about this from a message left by the Lin family's ancestor. But he hadn't expected that just the first step would have such a powerful pressure. Lin Jing then lifted his head to look ahead. He saw that there were a total of 81 steps from bottom to top. Ahead, the mist around the mountaintop had dissipated. At the summit, Lin Jing could clearly see the edge of a formation. It seemed that what the Lin family ancestor said was correct. There indeed was a formation at the top. After surveying for a while, Lin Jing again took another step upward. This second step's pressure was greater, but Lin Jing had already prepared himself. So, nothing unexpected happened. After stabilizing himself, Lin Jing then stepped onto the third step. This step was not much different from the previous ones and within his range of endurance. After adjusting for a while, Lin Jing stepped onto the fourth step, the fifth step, the sixth step. In the end, Lin Jing directly ascended to the ninth step. The pressure on this ninth step had almost doubled compared to the first one. Overall, it was still tolerable for Lin Jing. If it continued like this, the trial should not be too difficult. Lin Jing felt that many people should be able to get past it. But since no one had ever left Immortal Crossing Island before, it was evident there was more to come. And it had also been mentioned in the message left by the Lin family's ancestor. Every 9 steps, the difficulty would escalate to a new level. The exact increase was related to the cultivator's level of cultivation who entered the trial grounds. Therefore, Lin Jing was unclear about the exact intensity of the next level of steps. He could only step on it himself and personally test it out. Afterward, Lin Jing prepared himself thoroughly on the 9th step, and, after making all necessary preparations, he stepped firmly towards the 10th step. No sooner had he set foot on the 10th step than an extremely strong force tried to push him down from the steps. However, fortunately, Lin Jing had made ample mental preparation. Thus, he landed firmly on the step and was not pushed down by that fearsome force. As Lin Jing steadied his footsteps, next, that terrible gravity struck again. The pressure on the 10th step was overwhelming. Lin Jing felt as though his whole body was being tightly constricted by something, nearly suffocating him. At the same time, that dreadful divine sense pressure returned once more, equally terrifying. The dual pressure on both body and spirit made Lin Jing dizzy for a moment, almost causing him to fall from the step. Fortunately, Lin Jing, accustomed to alchemy all year round, had an incredibly tenacious divine sense. Gritting his teeth, he quickly recovered, thus preventing a fall. Afterward, he took a seated position with legs crossed and committed all his efforts to counteract the omnipresent pressure and the coercion of divine sense. This time, Lin Jing rested on the 10th step for a good 4 hours. During this period, he constantly circulated cultivation, nourishing his body with his own spiritual power in order to adapt quickly to the pressure there. At the same time, Lin Jing also noticed that under the coercion of the divine sense, his divine sense also seemed to have changed a bit, as if it wasn't as uncomfortable as before. After adapting, Lin Jing then stood up, stretched his body, and prepared to take another step forward. This time was just like the previous few steps. With one step onto the stairs, both the gravity and the divine sense pressure were significantly less than when ascended from the 9th to the 10th step. On the 11th step, Lin Jing spent another 2 hours adapting. After getting used to the gravity, Lin Jing did not choose to step onto the 12th step, because his spiritual power was almost completely depleted at this point. Lin Jing then started the second task. It was also the next plan he had in mind. That was to enter the system space while on steps. Next, standing on the 12th step, Lin Jing silently commanded in his heart, "Enter system space." As Lin Jing's words fell, his body instantly vanished from the 12th step and appeared inside the system space. Upon entering the system space, the surging spiritual energy directly flooded into his body. After several hours of torment without spiritual energy, Lin Jing couldn't help but take a deep breath, then let out a satisfied sigh. Thereafter, Lin Jing spoke aloud, calling out the system. "System, enter observation mode." Lin Jing did not start meditating to recover right away, but used the observation mode to check the situation first. At the same time, Lin Jing also thought of the fixed-point teleportation function. It was uncertain whether this system's fixed-point teleportation function could allow him to bypass the 81 steps directly and appear above the teleportation array on the mountaintop. Lin Jing wanted to try it. As Lin Jing's voice trailed off, he directly appeared outside in observation mode. This observational perspective showed no anomalies. Lin Jing directly controlled the viewpoint to rise. He wanted to see what the situation was like on the mountaintop. The observational perspective rose all the way to the top of the mountain. Finally, Lin Jing saw what the mountain summit looked like. There, atop the summit, was a massive circular formation. At the center of the formation was a deep pool. The pool was bottomless, as if it led directly to the seabed. Moreover, the water in this deep pool spun continuously, forming a vortex as if it wanted to devour everything. Around the formation, a total of 9 formation patterns sparkled with peculiar thunder arcs, connected to the central array, becoming one. Among these 9 peculiar formation patterns, one of them lit up with white light, and the thunder arcs on it had already vanished. The bright light from that peculiar formation pattern extended to the larger array, lighting up a small part of it. Next to it, another peculiar formation pattern also lit up partially, looking to be about a quarter as much. The thunder arcs on this formation pattern seemed somewhat dimmer. Seeing this, Lin Jing understood what was going on. This large array was likely closely related to the steps below. Only by passing the test on the steps below would the array be fully activated. And that deep pool might very well be the exit from Immortal Crossing Island. After observing, Lin Jing did not use the fixed-point teleportation function. On the mountaintop, though Lin Jing did not understand the peculiar formation patterns with thunder arcs, he felt inexplicably uneasy just from observing them, especially those thunder arcs. Lin Jing suspected that if he suddenly appeared on the array, the thunder arcs on those peculiar formation patterns would launch an attack against him. Since the trial grounds had stopped so many people, the strength of those thunder arcs went without saying. With Lin Jing's current level of cultivation, being struck by those thunder arcs would leave not even ashes behind. Upon reflection, he decided to let it be. Lin Jing determined to rely on his own strength to make it through the trial grounds. After resting completely in the system space and fully recovering his spiritual power, Lin Jing reappeared on the 12th step. Thereafter, Lin Jing continued like this, resting for a while as he reached each level. Before long, Lin Jing had already reached the 18th step. At this time, Lin Jing looked ahead. He knew that the 19th step below was where the real challenge lay. Lin Jing rested directly for 12 hours on the 18th step to fully adapt to the pressure and divine sense coercion there. After fully recovering, Lin Jing prepared himself and once again climbed upward. However, this time, Lin Jing wasn't so fortunate. No sooner had he climbed on the 19th step than he was immediately pushed down by the powerful force. As Lin Jing fell off the step, a phantom-like water screen appeared behind him. The scene within the water screen was the same pond that was in the oasis before. Lin Jing directly fell into this water screen, which rippled waves upon waves, and he vanished within the trial grounds. Before Lin Jing could react, the scenery before his eyes rapidly shifted from the steps, stone platforms, and vast yellow sand. Suddenly, it transformed into blue sky, white clouds, and lush greenery. And then came a plop. Lin Jing fell into the pond he had entered before the trial grounds began. This first attempt to conquer the trial grounds had ended in failure for Lin Jing. However, this was an expected outcome. Lin Jing emerged from the pool of water, then activated his spiritual power and dried all the moisture from his clothes. After completing all these tasks, Lin Jing sat cross-legged on the ground and began to ponder. This time at the trial grounds, Lin Jing could say he reaped a great harvest. Not to mention anything else, with the experience gained this time, Lin Jing was better prepared, and the next time he ventured into the trial grounds, the results would certainly be much better than this time. Not to mention anything else, but the next time he attempted it again, Lin Jing felt that advancing another 30 or 40 levels was not an issue. However, there was still 1 month until the trial grounds would open again. During this period, Lin Jing could further prepare himself and also enhance his 7 refinement body forging technique a bit more. In those trial grounds, had it not been for the support of the 7 refinement body forging technique, Lin Jing feared he wouldn't have been able to hold on for long. As for the divine sense oppression within the trial grounds, Lin Jing had no other solution for the time being. He could, however, activate the system space's enhancement possession function, which, once active, could increase Lin Jing's divine sense strength by 40%. With this 40% bonus, when facing the divine sense oppression again, it would naturally be much easier. However, using the enhancement possession function consumed too many harvest points, so it was best to use it sparingly. Therefore, during this period, he could practice the 7 refinement body forging technique while finding a way to condense his divine sense. Previously, when Lin Jing was on the steps of the trial grounds, he found that although it was difficult to resist the pressure of the divine sense, it seemed to also temper his own divine sense. With this thought in mind, Lin Jing decided that next time he went to the trial grounds, he wouldn't rush through the stages but instead stay for a while longer to temper his divine sense. After all, as long as he didn't fail in the trial grounds, he could stay there indefinitely. It was only upon failure that he would be teleported out. After pondering, Lin Jing looked toward the endless sandstorm outside the oasis, ready to enter the fierce wind and begin practicing the 7 refinement body forging technique. In fact, with Lin Jing currently at the 3rd layer of the 7 refinement body forging technique, the wind and sand outside were no longer sufficient for his training needs. What Lin Jing needed was a more violent storm, just like the one within the trial grounds. This 7 refinement body forging technique required continuous tempering to keep improving. If the external tempering was too weak, then it couldn't bring about any enhancement effect. However, Lin Jing had already searched the vicinity thoroughly and simply couldn't find that kind of more intense sandstorm. With no other choice, Lin Jing continued to move forward. Just then, as Lin Jing observed the violent weather before him, a sudden inspiration struck his mind. He then realized this endless sandstorm was also a kind of extreme weather, and the system space could simulate any type of environmental weather. He could completely simulate one inside the system space on his own. With this realization, Lin Jing couldn't hide his excitement and immediately called out to the system. System, enter system space. After entering the system space, Lin Jing spoke again. System, use the environmental simulation function. As Lin Jing's voice fell, a system panel appeared before him. On that panel, there were several types of environments, including the demon race secret realm environment that Lin Jing had simulated before. Lin Jing then reached out and tapped on the system panel, selecting the desert environment. Within this desert environment, several options emerged. Step by step, Lin Jing chose the terrain that he needed. At the end, when choosing the location, Lin Jing had to sacrifice another acre of 2nd-rank spirit plants to modify the desert environment. As Lin Jing made his final selection, the chosen spirit field began to change. The ground turned into a vast expanse of yellow sand, and the fierce wind began to wreak havoc unabated. The storm simulated by the system was much more formidable than the one outside. Although fierce, this storm remained confined within the acre of the spirit field without affecting the other spirit fields. This was why Lin Jing chose to sacrifice an acre of 2nd-rank spirit plants. Otherwise, if he transformed the entire system space into a desert like this, it was likely that all the spirit plants Lin Jing had planted would be affected. Moreover, inside the system space, the spiritual energy was abundant. Lin Jing could practice to enhance his cultivation while also training the 7 refinement body forging technique, strengthening his physique. And he didn't have to, like outside, practice without any spiritual energy and return to the system space whenever he needed to replenish his spiritual energy. Next, Lin Jing walked directly towards that desert spirit field filled with the storm. As soon as he entered the range of the spirit field, the coarse sand grains inflicted several wounds on his body. This effect was precisely what Lin Jing wanted. Lin Jing then, without any hesitation, walked into the storm, sat down cross-legged, and started cultivating. Time flew by, the years hastened on. Suddenly, a year had passed. That day, above the oasis in the desert of Immortal Crossing Island, a projection-like water curtain suddenly appeared. Not long after the water curtain appeared, a particularly strong and dark figure fell out of it. This figure, who had just fallen out, was Lin Jing, who had failed in the trial grounds once again and was teleported out. A year had passed, and Lin Jing still hadn't managed to break through the trial grounds. Once again, he was teleported out. Quickly, Lin Jing emerged from the pool of water. At this moment, Lin Jing had a broad back and a thick waist, not from being fat, but from being extremely robust. Moreover, his skin had become much darker during this period of hard training. At a glance, Lin Jing was a tall man standing at 9 feet, with a body covered in rough, dark muscles. All of this was due to the 7 refinement body forging technique. The higher the level of the 7 refinement body forging technique Lin Jing cultivated, the stronger his body became. It was only when he reached the 7th refinement would his body return to its previous state. And Lin Jing had been cultivating for a year. By now, Lin Jing had reached the 5th refinement of the 7 refinement body forging technique. Therefore, Lin Jing's physique was even more exaggerated than before. In this year, not only had the 7 refinement body forging technique increased, but his cultivation was also incessantly growing. Now a year had passed. Lin Jing had progressed from the initial 8th level of foundation establishment to the peak of foundation establishment. The cultivation at the peak of foundation establishment wasn't far from the golden core stage. With the cultivation at the peak of foundation establishment, along with the 5th refinement of Lin Jing's 7 refinement body forging technique. This time, Lin Jing charged into the trial grounds, getting all the way to the 63rd step before being pushed down by the fierce repelling force at the 64th step and was teleported out. The stairs of the trial grounds exerted stronger pressure the further back they went. Lin Jing felt that after more than a year of refinement, his physique and the strength of his divine sense had increased significantly compared to a year ago. His divine sense strength may not be on par with that of golden core cultivators, but it was probably close. Nevertheless, even so, Lin Jing could clearly feel that his physique had probably reached its limit. While he could temporarily enhance his divine sense strength using the enhancement possession function, there was nothing he could do about his physique, unless he cultivated the Overlord divine physique. A moment later, Lin Jing reached into his storage bag and took out the jade slip that contained information on the Overlord divine physique. Initially, Lin Jing hadn't planned on cultivating the Overlord divine physique. But now, cultivating the Overlord divine physique was indeed the best option. Lin Jing's 7 refinement body forging technique had already reached the 5th refinement, and perhaps he could reach the 6th refinement in a short time. But the 6th refinement of the 7 refinement body forging technique probably wouldn't even get him past the 73rd step, not to mention the final 81st step. Lin Jing estimated that even the 7th refinement of the 7 refinement body forging technique wouldn't be able to conquer the last 81st step. Actually, there was another important reason why Lin Jing chose to cultivate the Overlord divine physique. That was Lin Jing's cultivation. By now, Lin Jing had reached the peak of foundation establishment and was only 1 step away from the golden core stage. If he couldn't break through the trial grounds again and became a golden core cultivator, then the difficulty of the trial grounds would double. It would be even harder for Lin Jing to break through, and the Overlord divine physique could just consume cultivation to enhance his physical strength. After cultivating the Overlord divine physique, Lin Jing wouldn't have to worry about accidentally triggering the heavenly tribulation and ascending to the golden core stage. Moreover, it would increase his physical strength, making it easier to break through the trial grounds. With such benefits, why not go for it? Thus, Lin Jing now took out the Overlord divine physique, intending to start cultivating it. Afterward, Lin Jing's divine sense probed into the jade slip, and he began to attempt cultivation. And so, in the following period, Lin Jing kept cultivating while attempting the trial grounds. He even took time to refine a few batches of elixir medicine. The Lin family's pill Dao, indeed worthy of being an inheritance from the ancient alchemy path. After practicing it, Lin Jing definitely felt that the probability of refining flawless elixir medicine had increased. The best occasion was just recently when within 2 days, Lin Jing consecutively refined 5 batches of cultivation true elixir, and from these 5 batches, he directly produced 2 flawless elixirs. This filled Lin Jing with immense joy. With his flawless cultivation true elixir, once he left the secret realm, ascending to golden core stage during his next advancement would have a greater chance of success. While Lin Jing continued to cultivate and venture into the trial grounds, another year and a half hurriedly passed by. During this year and a half, Lin Jing would attempt the trial grounds once a month. The trial grounds were truly formidable. With Lin Jing's current cultivation at the peak of foundation establishment, combined with more than 2 years of relentless training, Lin Jing felt that he could hold his own even against real golden core cultivators. But even so, he still hadn't managed to break through the trial grounds. The best attempt Lin Jing had was last time. That time, just as he had stepped onto the 79th level, before he could even feel elated, he was pushed down by the powerful repulsion force. The repelling force was incredibly formidable. Lin Jing could sense that it was comparable to the full force strike of a golden core cultivator. You should know, ever since he cultivated the Overlord divine physique, Lin Jing's body had become so tough that even his own flawless sword could only leave a light scratch on it. With the 6th layer of the 7 refinement body forging technique, coupled with the augmentation of the Overlord divine physique, equivalent to the latter stages of the foundation establishment, Lin Jing's body had reached a terrifying level of strength. In the past year and a half, Lin Jing had not ceased cultivating, and the cultivation he gained was all condensed within his acupoints, serving as nourishment for the Overlord divine physique. The Overlord divine physique did not disappoint. With its enhancement, Lin Jing's physical strength had climbed more than just one step, especially now that the Overlord divine physique had reached the 9th layer of foundation establishment, which was equivalent to Lin Jing was not only a cultivator at the peak of the foundation establishment stage in terms of conventional spells, but also a body refinement cultivator at the 9th layer of foundation establishment. Body refinement cultivators primarily focus on tempering their bodies, their ultimate pursuit being the philosophy of a single strength breaks all spells. This differs from spell cultivators. Combining the two, Lin Jing could now face golden core cultivators without fear when fighting his enemies. However, what Lin Jing faced now was the trial grounds. These trial grounds were undoubtedly exaggerated. If one didn't possess a physique and a divine sense that were far stronger than those of the current stage, it would be nearly impossible to pass through the trial grounds. Lin Jing's body was already as strong as that of a golden core cultivator. But that wasn't enough. Hence, Lin Jing had to elevate his Overlord divine physique to the peak of the foundation establishment stage. Fortunately, his cultivation had once again reached full capacity. If Lin Jing didn't break through now, he might attract the heavenly tribulation. At that moment, Lin Jing was still sitting cross-legged on the ground in the alchemy room within the system space. All 108 acupoints throughout his body were radiating light, shining through his body. From the outside, these acupoints looked like small whirlpools, frantically absorbing the spiritual power cultivated by Lin Jing into their vortexes. After these small whirlpools had absorbed the spiritual power, they acted like greedy infants suckling their mother's milk, still not satisfied. Instead, they emitted brighter lights and absorbed the spiritual power Lin Jing had cultivated with even greater frenzy. As time passed bit by bit, Lin Jing could feel the acupoints filling with more and more spiritual power, while the spiritual power he had been cultivating was getting less and less. Finally, just before Lin Jing's spiritual power ran dry, the acupoints were finally completely filled with it. That's just how the Overlord divine physique is. Initially, filling the acupoints didn't require much spiritual power. However, as the body refinement cultivation improved, the more advanced it became, the more spiritual power needed to fill the acupoints. Like now, if Lin Jing wanted to advance from the 9th layer of foundation establishment to its peak, it was as if he had to cultivate from the 9th layer all over again. Only by infusing so much spiritual power could he elevate his realm of cultivation. After the acupoints were filled, there was another step to go. That was to temper the spiritual power within the acupoints, and then reforge his body with the Overlord divine physique using that power. Once the tempering was done, Lin Jing's body would grow even stronger, reaching the peak of foundation establishment. And this step was extremely time-consuming. Therefore, after filling his acupoints, Lin Jing did not get up but immediately began the tempering process. 3 days later, as a burst of black light exploded from his body, Lin Jing finally brought his Overlord divine physique to the pinnacle of foundation establishment. At this moment, aside from Lin Jing's body becoming more robust than before due to the practice of the 7 refinement body forging technique, a layer of black light that shone through his body continued to glint around him. This layer of black light, a result of cultivating the Overlord divine physique, meant that now even the spells of foundation establishment stage couldn't do real harm to Lin Jing. They were like tickling. Even facing the formidable spells of a golden core cultivator, this black light could withstand part of the damage, wearing away some of the spell's power to prevent Lin Jing from being severely injured. Beyond this layer of black light, the toughness and explosive power of Lin Jing's body had also substantially improved. Now Lin Jing, even without using spells and relying solely on his body, could match other cultivators at the peak of foundation establishment. Afterwards, Lin Jing stood up, clenched his fist, and immediately felt a vast power surge toward his arm. He swung out his fist as fast as lightning, and then, with a snap, a loud explosive sound erupted, followed by a ripple of air that spread quickly. The speed of Lin Jing's punch had already surpassed the speed of sound, and that was merely the power of his physique. In fact, this wasn't even Lin Jing's limit. If he were to gather spiritual power with its enhancement, Lin Jing could become even stronger. Today, another leap forward filled Lin Jing with confidence. He planned to take another run at the trial grounds as soon as they reopened. This time, he was determined to firmly stand on the 80th step. Soon, time flowed like water, slipping rapidly away. Another full moon night had come, and Lin Jing had already been waiting by the water's edge for a long time. At that moment, Lin Jing's condition had been adjusted to its best, ready for the moment the trial ground would open for him to enter directly. As time slowly passed, the full moon also gradually rose high in the sky. And when the moon reached its zenith directly overhead, its reflection also appeared in the pond. Just then, a reflection like water appeared above the pool, just like the reflection of the pool itself. Lin Jing then stood up, looked at the water curtain reflection above, and with a leap, he entered into the reflection. Stepping through the water curtain reflection, Lin Jing found himself directly in the midst of the desert's howling winds. Before, the sand grains that once could scratch Lin Jing's skin, now, blowing against him, couldn't even tickle. This showed just how strong Lin Jing's physical body had become. Upon entering, Lin Jing looked around before heading straight in the direction of the trial grounds. Just 2/4 of an hour later, Lin Jing arrived beside the dilapidated stone stele. Lin Jing's speed was much faster than before. Moreover, after his physical strength increased, traveling through the sandy areas no longer caused him any deterioration. At this moment, Lin Jing was still in peak condition. Turning around, he approached the staircase. Lin Jing looked up at the 80th and the 81st steps, his eyes filled with determination. This time, Lin Jing was resolved to reach beyond the 80th step. He even wanted to attempt the 81st. Then, Lin Jing stepped forward and began to climb the first step. The pressure from the first step was nearly zero to Lin Jing at this state. Without stopping, he climbed up one step at a time. After so many trials, Lin Jing knew the pressure on every step like the back of his hand. It was not until crossing the 54th step that Lin Jing's speed finally slowed. However, he did not pause. In less than 1/4 of an hour, Lin Jing reached the 64th step. On the 64th step, Lin Jing took a short break to adjust his condition before stepping onto the 65th. The pressure of the 65th step could already have a significant impact on Lin Jing. Yet, this impact was still far from reaching Lin Jing's limit of endurance. After that, he paused on each step, allowing his body and divine sense to adapt before continuing the climb. In this way, it took Lin Jing over an hour to reach the 73rd step. Starting here, it became more challenging, and Lin Jing needed much longer to adapt than before. Still, even though he reached as high as the 73rd step, Lin Jing did not activate the boosting feature. With persistent tempering over this time, the strength of Lin Jing's divine sense was incomparably stronger than before. This was his greatest gain over the past 2 years. Then, from a 73rd to the 78th step, it took Lin Jing 3 days to ascend. During this period, he entered the system space several times for recovery. It was fortunate that he had the system space to catch his breath. In this place devoid of spiritual power, even if one exhausted their power, there was no way to replenish it. Lin Jing wondered how others managed to climb up here. From the information left by the Lin family ancestor, Lin Jing knew that the highest the ancestor had ever reached was this 78th step. He had never managed to climb any higher. Without the system space, Lin Jing feared he might not have been able to reach the 78th step. At the 78th step, Lin Jing sat down cross-legged. He needed to stay here for quite some time. Last time, Lin Jing had stayed for nearly half a month. This time, it seemed he might need less time than before. Subsequently, Lin Jing began to cultivate, circulating his cultivation technique on the 78th step. 7 days later, Lin Jing, who had fully adapted to the 78th step, stood up. After stretching his body, he stepped towards the 79th step. As soon as Lin Jing's foot touched the 79th step, the fierce repulsive force came at him, attempting to topple him off. But Lin Jing was prepared. He forcefully anchored his foot onto the 79th step. Then, lifting his other foot, he stepped up as well. Once Lin Jing firmly stood on the 79th step, the repulsive force disappeared. Instead, he faced the terrifying oppressive force and the vast pressure of the divine sense. Under such oppression, Lin Jing clenched his teeth and desperately held on. The pressure of the divine sense was far stronger than on the 78th step. Even though he had been more than capable on the 78th step, here, the fierce divine sense pressure nearly caused him to lose his composure and cry out in pain. However, even so, Lin Jing still did not use the boost feature. If he used it now, the ascent to the 80th step would become much more difficult. Thus, Lin Jing needed to use the pressure of the divine sense here to temper his own divine sense, to make it stronger so that when attempting to climb the 80th step, he wouldn't fail outright. Compared to the fierce pressure of the divine sense, the physical strain seemed much easier. Perhaps it was because Lin Jing had cultivated the Overlord divine physique to the pinnacle of foundation establishment stage. Lin Jing's body felt relatively at ease on this 79th step. After stabilizing on the 79th step, Lin Jing then sat down cross-legged and started to temper his body and divine sense using the oppressive force and divine sense pressure. This time, Lin Jing stayed on the 79th step for a full month before he fully adapted to the divine sense pressure there. After a month of tempering, Lin Jing felt his divine sense had greatly strengthened. This was the transformation that emerged under the ultimate pressure. The trial grounds seemed more like a place specifically for tempering the body and divine sense. If any sect had possession of these trial grounds, their strength would likely increase significantly. Unfortunately, the trial grounds were within Immortal Crossing Island and could not be moved by anyone. Lin Jing himself had tried using the system space, but the pressure here was not formed by the terrain. Therefore, even the environmental simulation feature of the system space could not replicate these trial grounds. Having fully adapted to the 79th step, Lin Jing then stood up, preparing himself, and planned to step onto the 80th step. This time, Lin Jing set a goal for himself. At the very least, he must fully stand on the 80th step without being pushed down by the repelling force, as he was when he first attempted the 79th step. Then, Lin Jing called out the system and spoke. System, activate the bonus possession function. As Lin Jing's voice fell, a familiar sensation surged over him, and his divine sense suddenly soared. Then came the sound of the system prompt. Ding! System alert. Bonus possession activated successfully. deducting 5 harvest points. After 5 minutes, 1 harvest point will be deducted every minute. After activating the bonus possession, Lin Jing faced the divine sense pressure of the 79th step with ease. Having been refined, Lin Jing's divine sense was already very strong, not to mention an additional 40% added to his divine sense strength, making him even more formidable. Feeling his divine sense surge so suddenly, Lin Jing had the illusion that he could easily cope with the divine sense pressure of even the 80th step. However, even with this feeling, he would not attempt it recklessly. After preparing himself, Lin Jing took a deep breath. Then, with a determined gaze, he looked towards the 80th step ahead. Afterward, Lin Jing raised his foot and stepped directly onto it. This time, as soon as Lin Jing stepped onto the 80th step, the repelling force nearly pushed him off. Lin Jing exerted force to stabilize his form. In that position, he held on, waiting until he slowly adapted before cautiously lifting his second foot. Lin Jing knew that once both feet were on the 80th step, he would face an even greater repelling force. So, before he lifted his second foot, Lin Jing was already furiously circulating the spiritual power in his body, preparing to resist the sudden onrush of the repelling force. As Lin Jing's second foot slowly rose and settled on the 80th step, the immense repelling force suddenly struck. Lin Jing, with 1 foot forward and 1 back, braced himself against the ferocious repelling assault. The repelling force was indeed formidable, and despite Lin Jing's full resistance, he was still nearly pushed down the 80th step. At that moment, his leading foot had already lifted off the ground, just shy of falling off. Fortunately, at that critical moment, the repelling force disappeared, and Lin Jing was not pushed off. With the repelling force gone, Lin Jing braced for the next challenge. The crushing pressure and the divine sense pressure were about to hit him. However, just then, an unexpected change occurred. The oppressive force and the divine sense pressure that should have come did not arrive. Instead, the 80th step began to shake. This was the first time Lin Jing had encountered such a situation, making him wary and ready to transport himself into the system's space at any moment. Lin Jing stabilized his stance to avoid being shaken off while looking around, trying to understand what was happening. But as Lin Jing looked down, he discovered the steps below were disappearing one by one. As the steps below vanished, a small stele beside the 80th step slowly rose. The steps behind Lin Jing disappeared quickly, and within a short while, all the steps behind him were gone. Now, behind Lin Jing, there was nothing but empty space. Once the stairs behind him disappeared, a sandstorm blew in, covering everything tightly, leaving nothing visible to the eye. Lin Jing couldn't help but frown. This sudden turn of events was uncertain whether it was good or bad. Given Lin Jing's current location, it probably wasn't anything good. Then, Lin Jing looked at the stele beside the 80th step, and the words on it caused his face to change dramatically. It read, "The Immortal Crossing Trial officially begins. From this moment, exiting will result in death." However, the stele continued to rise. Quickly, more words were revealed, and Lin Jing focused on the stele, eager to see what the next sentence was. When the last sentence was revealed, Lin Jing's face grew even more unsightly. Success live, failure dot. So this was the nature of the 80th step. Fail to cross, and you would die. There wasn't even a hint of a way back. It was likely that the true difficulty lay in the 80th and the 81st steps. Otherwise, why would there have been so many years without a single cultivator leaving Immortal Crossing Island? Keep in mind, those top cultivators who came to Immortal Crossing Island, each one of them a peerless genius, who didn't have countless extraordinary methods at their disposal. Yet still, not a single person had been able to leave Immortal Crossing Island, which speaks volumes about the difficulty of the final trial. As the stele slowly rose, the swaying of the 80th step also started to diminish. Lin Jing could feel that the real trial was about to begin. It should be when the shaking stops and the stele has fully risen. Lin Jing hurriedly adjusted his condition in anticipation of the true trial ahead. As the trembling reduced to a calm, the steel rose slowly until with a click, it seemed to lock into place, motionless. It was at that moment an enormous pressure descended, overwhelming like the end of the world, causing Lin Jing, who stood prepared to face it, to fall plop on one knee to the ground. Simultaneously, a divine sense carrying the aura of world-ending might rushed toward Lin Jing's sea of consciousness. This divine pressure was incredibly domineering, forcibly pushing back the divine sense Lin Jing had extended and trying to invade his sea of consciousness. Thankfully, Lin Jing was under the effects of an enhancement, making his divine sense very strong. Thus, he was barely able to keep the divine pressure at bay, outside of his sea of consciousness. However, it was not over. Just as Lin Jing thought he had resisted the pressure, the immense pressure and the terrifying divine pressure kept intensifying. Lin Jing felt as if his bones were beginning to creak under the massive pressure. And from various parts of his body, wounds began to appear. These injuries were caused by the compression of his body, unable to withstand the force, leading to ruptures. As the all-encompassing pressure and divine sense's oppression grew stronger, Lin Jing finally couldn't hold on any longer. He had no choice but to call out to the system. System, enter system space. With Lin Jing's words, he entered into the system space. Inside system space, Lin Jing could no longer bear it and collapsed to the ground. The dual pressures on his body and divine sense were too much for Lin Jing to resist, forcing him to temporarily retreat to system space. After returning to system space, the enhancement automatically wore off. The pressure was too immense. It took Lin Jing a long while in system space to finally recover his strength. Subsequently, Lin Jing began to furrow his brows in thought. If he wanted to leave, he still had to break through the 80th step and the one above it, the 81st step. But the pressure of the 80th step increased gradually. The first thing Lin Jing had to do was to figure out the limit of this increasing pressure. If the pressure truly increased without limit, then there was no point in attempting to break through. He should look for a way to exit the trial grounds instead. With that thought, Lin Jing called out to the system. System, enter observation mode. As Lin Jing finished speaking, his perspective shifted abruptly, appearing outside. When Lin Jing used the observation mode to view the outside, he realized the gravity of the situation. Now the entire place was enveloped in a tempest of wind and sand, and all Lin Jing could see were the 80th and 81st steps amidst it, as well as the formation on the stone platform. Everywhere else, including the way back, had vanished. Lin Jing then controlled the observation perspective, searching around, and found that it was indeed the case. One could say that the trial grounds were now reduced to these 3 spots where someone could stand. Even if Lin Jing wanted to exit now, it probably wouldn't be possible. Lin Jing understood then the true meaning behind death upon retreat. In the tempest, virtually invisible to the naked eye, there were faint glimmering lights mixed within the sandy wind, covering the entire area. Merely looking at it gave Lin Jing a deep chill in his heart. The moment he disappeared from the 80th step, the entire trial grounds would turn into a killing field brimming with danger. With this in mind, Lin Jing continued to operate the observation mode. This time he probed downwards. As Lin Jing controlled the view to its limit, he finally uncovered another secret of the trial grounds. Below the trial grounds, numerous bones were piled together. They formed a small mountain. These bones, many of them broken into pieces, had no spot left intact. And they were not just bones. There were jade bones radiating golden light, almost transparent crystal bones, and more. The remains of once mighty cultivators. All received the same treatment, discarded together like trash. Indeed, quite a few people had made it to this point. However, once they reached here, they all failed. And so, they were buried within these trial grounds. After exploring, Lin Jing then exited observation mode. At this moment, he had absolutely no way out. But now, Lin Jing still hadn't figured out the 80th step, not to mention the mysterious 81st step. Another matter of concern was the time Lin Jing had left to enter system space. Lin Jing must withstand the pressure of the 80th step before his time to enter system space ran out. Otherwise, once the time to enter system space was exhausted, it would be the end of Lin Jing. With this in mind, Lin Jing couldn't help but frown. Then, Lin Jing called up the system again. Open the system panel. This time, Lin Jing needed to see how much time he had left in system space, so he could plan what to do next. As Lin Jing's words fell, a system panel appeared in front of him. System space, level 4, upgradable. Remaining time, 272 hours, accumulable up to 400 hours. Host, Lin Jing. Spirit field range, 40 mu. Spiritual energy density, 4. Flow of time speed, 4. Daily entry time, 8 hours. Upgrade requirement, 11538/10,000 harvest points. Special functions, alert mode, observation mode, time accumulation for seasons, environment terrain, spirit plant repair, enhancement possession, spiritual plant acceleration growth. The remaining time for entering system space was only 272 hours, which, if spent entirely inside system space, would amount to a mere 11 days. Once those 11 days passed, if he still hadn't gotten used to the pressure of the outside world, then it would be his time to die. However, the harvest points he had saved up over time were plentiful. System space was also ready to be upgraded once again. But Lin Jing, right now, dare not to upgrade immediately. Now was the time he needed to use harvest points, and, without them, he wouldn't be able to use the bonus attachment function. Under his current circumstances, he feared he wouldn't even be able to withstand the divine sense pressure of the 80th step. At this juncture, the situation had become severe. Thereafter, Lin Jing furrowed his brow, pondering his strategy. Some time later, Lin Jing suddenly made a move. He took out a jade slip from his storage bag. This jade slip contained the Dao Transformation Divinity technique. The Dao Transformation Divinity technique could enhance divine sense, but it required to be at the golden core stage to cultivate it. Since Lin Jing had placed it in his storage bag, he hadn't paid it any attention. Now, in such a critical moment, Lin Jing had no choice but to take it out. He didn't have any other cultivation technique on him that could increase divine sense. He could only rely on the Dao Transformation Divinity technique. Although the Dao Transformation Divinity technique specified it could only be cultivated at the golden core stage, Lin Jing felt that it meant one had to possess divine sense of the golden core stage to cultivate this technique. And Lin Jing's divine sense was already roughly at the level of the golden core stage. So, Lin Jing wanted to give it a try. Afterward, Lin Jing made his way to the alchemy room, where there was a 40% strength bonus to divine sense, which might also improve his cultivation of the Dao Transformation Divinity technique. Next, his divine sense probed into the jade slip, and he began his own study. One thought enters the Dao. Scattered thoughts transform the Dao. The divine consolidates the Dao's existence. The divine disperses the Dao's demise. The opening of the Dao Transformation Divinity technique left Lin Jing completely confused. Nevertheless, Lin Jing continued to read on, and he did so with great diligence. The more perilous the time, the less he could afford to be distracted. Naturally, Lin Jing understood this principle well. Otherwise, if he became disorganized first, even if a chance to survive presented itself before him, he would not be able to seize it. Several hours later, Lin Jing finally had a rough understanding of the entire Dao Transformation Divinity technique. Lin Jing only casually scanned the latter part, which detailed the spirit division technique cultivable beyond the divinity transformation stage, gaining a general idea. But the earlier part, which detailed how to increase divine sense, that Lin Jing read meticulously, because that was the part he truly needed to understand. After reading it, Lin Jing now understood how the Dao Transformation Divinity technique refined and increased divine sense. It used an extremely cruel method, that is to split one's own divine sense apart, then reconstitute it, continuing this cycle repeatedly. This division is not like the method of using a magic artifact to split off a part. It's a complete severance of some part of the divine sense, utterly losing connection with oneself. This method is indeed cruel and, if not controlled well, can damage the soul spirit. But the creator of the Tao transformation divinity technique must be acknowledged as a genius of his era. He found a way to minimize this danger to the lowest, and through this continuous splitting and reconstituting process, he was able to constantly strengthen his divine sense. But that's also why this technique is restricted to cultivation by those above the golden core stage. Because only at the golden core stage and beyond is the divine sense strong enough to endure such constant splitting. If one were at the foundation establishment stage, the divine sense wouldn't be firm enough, likely causing one to go insane from being unable to withstand the splitting. Having grasped the Tao transformation divinity technique, Lin Jing knew that there would be no problem in his cultivation of it, because by now his divine sense had become incredibly solid. Following that, Lin Jing stepped out of the alchemy room and came outside. Because he was about to split his divine sense, it was not suitable for Lin Jing to stay in the alchemy room, which could enhance the strength of his divine sense. Outside, on the other hand, was more appropriate. Lin Jing had 11 days left to enter the system space, which was equivalent to 44 days if he stayed inside the system space. He had to raise his divine sense to the next level within these 44 days. And then there was the strength of his body. Lin Jing was at the 5th refinement of the 7 refinement body forging technique, not far from the 6th. During this time, he also had to advance his practice of the 7 refinement body forging technique to the 6th refinement. Only by doing so, facing the oppressive force of the 80th step, would he have the confidence to pass through it. Upon finishing his contemplation, Lin Jing then headed towards the spirit field of the Sandstorm Desert. He began the dual cultivation of divine sense and body refinement. 10 days later in the system space, Lin Jing's cultivation had finally borne fruit. At this point, Lin Jing's divine sense had become much stronger than it was 10 days ago. And today, he had also advanced to the 6th refinement of the 7 refinement body forging technique. Lin Jing knew that the time was ripe, and he could no longer stay in the system space. With not much time left to enter the system space, Lin Jing had to quickly adapt to the external pressure of the 80th step. Afterward, Lin Jing stepped out of the desert spirit field. First, he checked his own state, and after confirming there was no problem, Lin Jing then openly spoke. "Leave system space." As his voice fell, Lin Jing promptly appeared on top of the 80th step. However, as soon as Lin Jing appeared, he was hit by a great oppressive force and a tremendous divine sense pressure. When this body-targeted oppressive force arrived, Lin Jing felt much more at ease facing this pressure than last time. Last time, Lin Jing was pressured by this tremendous force to his knees. Having just cultivated to the 6th refinement of the 7 refinement body forging technique, his body was now stronger and more resilient than before. The initial pressure was something Lin Jing could completely withstand. However, it was the divine sense pressure that overwhelmed Lin Jing's divine sense in an instant. In that moment, Lin Jing's head throbbed as if countless nails were being hammered into his brain. System, activate bonus attachment. It was during this overwhelming divine sense pressure that Lin Jing roared out that command. With that command issued, Lin Jing instantly felt his divine sense grow much more powerful, and the feeling of his head splitting open vanished. Lin Jing let out a sigh of relief. Indeed, using bonus attachment and not using it resulted in 2 completely different outcomes. But the bonus attachment consumed harvest points rapidly, using up 1 point per minute. Lin Jing certainly couldn't keep using the bonus attachment function constantly. He still needed to use the divine sense pressure to refine his own divine sense. Soon, as time passed, the pressure in the surroundings and the divine sense pressure gradually began to strengthen. Lin Jing just wanted to see if this pressure was always increasing without limit. If it was so, then Lin Jing would definitely be unable to escape. Lin Jing waited like this until 6 hours later. The pressure and the divine sense pressure were still growing. However, this growth had become negligible. Moreover, with Lin Jing's current body strength and divine sense under bonus attachment, he could certainly cope. This discovery allowed Lin Jing to relax a bit, because the increase in pressure was limited. Previously, Lin Jing had felt the pressure to be extremely intense, perhaps like the last straw that breaks the camel's back. The pressure was already nearly unbearable for Lin Jing. Even just a little increase, and he could clearly feel the added weight. But now the pressure had not reached Lin Jing's limit of endurance. Thus, Lin Jing didn't feel the increased pressure to be as strong anymore. Having understood all this, Lin Jing didn't return to the system space just yet. He needed to fully understand the specific pressure of the 80th step, so Lin Jing could not leave at the moment. Even with the bonus attachment operating at a high harvest point consumption, he had to gauge it. As time continued to pass, soon, one day had already gone by, and Lin Jing had come to understand the limit of the pressure. After one day, the pressure ceased to change. At this point, Lin Jing was bent over from the pressure, but still straining to hold on. But he persevered. After fully grasping these details, Lin Jing then entered the system space. This experiment cost Lin Jing a total of 1503 harvest points. Upon returning and looking at the numbers behind the system prompt, Lin Jing felt as if his heart was bleeding. So many harvest points would have been enough for Lin Jing to ripen the blood-red vermilion fruit 3 more times. However, having ascertained the limits of that pressure made spending those harvest points worthwhile. Next, Lin Jing would dedicate himself to cultivating the Tao transformation divinity technique to condense his divine sense. Without realizing it, another half a year had passed. At this point within the trial grounds, Lin Jing stood on the 80th step, looking up at the 81st step above. Lin Jing appeared quite relaxed at the moment, not tired in the least, as if the omnipresent pressure of divine sense had disappeared altogether. However, it wasn't that the pressures had vanished, but rather Lin Jing had grown accustomed to them. Right after experimenting with the limits of that pressure for the first time, Lin Jing had returned to the system space to begin refining his divine sense. It wasn't until 10 days later that Lin Jing ventured out again, and so Lin Jing would leave at regular intervals. As the number of departures increased, the time Lin Jing spent outside grew longer and longer. Moreover, later on, when going out again, Lin Jing tried his best not to use the attachment enhancement feature. He needed to maintain a balance between his harvest points and the time spent in the system space. And so it went until a month later. Lin Jing had completely adapted to the external pressures. It was from that moment on that Lin Jing no longer had to worry about running out of time in the system space. Furthermore, during this time, aside from the tempering of his divine sense, Lin Jing's body had been strengthening continuously. Although the Overlord divine physique was still at the pinnacle of foundation establishment, he was just one opportunity away from advancing to the Golden Core stage. This opportunity was the Golden Core Thunder Tribulation. It was the same with his cultivation. However, Lin Jing had been continually suppressing his own cultivation. Whenever his cultivation overflowed, Lin Jing would immediately refine it into his acupoints, using it to cultivate the Overlord divine physique. Now, Lin Jing already possessed the fully complete cultivation of the pinnacle of foundation establishment, coupled with the fully complete Overlord divine physique at the pinnacle of foundation establishment. Lin Jing could no longer continue refining. If he stayed any longer, he would have to face tribulation to enter the Golden Core stage. Because of the increase in his physical cultivation, the oppressive force on the 80th step was no longer a concern for Lin Jing. And through the cultivation of the Tao transformation divinity technique, Lin Jing's divine sense had also reached an unprecedented level. Lin Jing felt that his divine sense might not be inferior to that of an average mid-Golden Core stage cultivator. Now, even without using the attachment enhancement feature, he could remain unharmed on the 80th step. The only thing that made Lin Jing anxious was one matter, and that was the step right in front of him, the 81st step. If the 80th step was already so formidable, wouldn't this final 81st step be much more terrifying than the 80th? Therefore, Lin Jing hesitated somewhat. But Lin Jing's cultivation was also nearing the point where it couldn't be suppressed any longer, to the brink of facing tribulation. This left Lin Jing with no choice but to step onto the 81st step. After much contemplation, Lin Jing made up his mind. To continue staying here would mean a dead end. He must ascend the 81st step today. Having thought it through, Lin Jing got ready and took a step forward, stepping onto the 81st step. However, when Lin Jing's foot landed firmly on the 81st step, the anticipated repulsion force did not appear. Lin Jing furrowed his brow, starting to feel puzzled. As he waited a while longer, it still didn't appear. Lin Jing then lifted his leg, and both feet stepped onto the 81st step. At this moment, Lin Jing was fully on guard, ready to face the sudden onslaught of repulsion force or divine sense pressure. Simultaneously, the attachment enhancement feature was once again activated by Lin Jing. After waiting a little while longer, suddenly, another change occurred. The 80th step behind Lin Jing disappeared abruptly, and the 81st step in front of him underwent a transformation. One could see a gigantic formation appearing around the 81st step, which was identical to the one on top of the stone platform. Baffled, Lin Jing hastily looked toward the top of the stone platform. However, Lin Jing could no longer see the top of the stone platform, but could only see the step beneath his feet, as well as this massive formation. This formation even had a concealing function. Just then, a screen appeared in front of him, and on the screen, 2 rows of characters formed by black ink appeared. It read, "Immortal Crossing Grounds, the path to becoming an immortal. Heavenly tribulation descends, the true immortal self crosses." Following that, the 2 rows of ink characters disappeared, and a scene of a heavenly tribulation destroying the world appeared on the screen. The heavenly tribulation scene in the screen looked as real as life. Lin Jing could clearly see from within the screen that countless top cultivators were turned to ash by the tribulation lightning descending from the heavens, strike by strike. And in the immortal cities below those cultivators, countless low-level cultivators and mortals were howling, crying out, and numerous people, some on flying swords and others fleeing, trying to escape from that world-ending thunder tribulation. However, a particularly thick column of lightning struck down. The entire city, along with those cultivators and mortals, vanished without a trace. And those standing in the void, whether it be kind-faced old men or stunning beauties with flowing hair, these cultivators, even those of the Mahayana realm who were facing tribulation, were acting as if they were crazed at the time, paying no heed to their own appearances, cursing non-stop, and attacking with all sorts of magical treasures and spells, trying to stop this apocalyptic tribulation. Yet it was all in vain. As each bolt of tribulation lightning struck down, the world soon returned to the quietness of death. At this moment, the scene in the screen changed once again. The black ink characters re-emerged. Under the heavenly tribulation, endure for a single breath, and you may leave Immortal Crossing Island. Then, the light screen changed scenes, and the top of the stone platform appeared. A person, whose appearance was indistinct, came to the top of the stone platform and jumped directly into the deep pool, entering the vortex within. After jumping in, the light screen once again turned blank, and the ink-like writing reappeared. Survive for 2 breaths under the heavenly tribulation, and you may obtain an unparalleled immortal artifact. Afterward, the ink writing on the light screen vanished, and it was replaced by a person wielding an incredibly extraordinary-looking flying sword that radiated with iridescent, golden light. Wherever the flying sword passed, countless top cultivators were slain with a single strike. The one controlling the flying sword then stood amidst the high skies, laughing heartily under the admiring gazes of the crowd. Survive for 3 breaths under the heavenly tribulation, and you would be directly granted immortal chi to refine your body, becoming an immortal on the spot. When the ink characters faded this time, the light screen showed a splendidly magnificent immortal palace, with palaces made of gilt and jade tiles emanating dazzling golden glows. Within the light screen, each person bore an aura of immortality, some riding cranes and others steering clouds, heading to the Immortal Palace to attend a banquet of celestial delicacies. At that banquet, numerous, indescribable spirit fruits were neatly laid out, and just looking at them was almost enough to make one's mouth water. However, all of this vanished completely with the disappearance of the light screen, like a fleeting dream or a bubble shadow. After the disappearance of the light screen, the array suddenly altered, and an extremely terrifying aura enveloped Lin Jing in an instant. Lin Jing felt a tingling sensation on his scalp. He saw above his head countless lightning arcs gathering, seeming to form a thick heavenly thunder that would engulf Lin Jing. After seeing the images on the light screen, Lin Jing knew that this heavenly thunder could very likely be the dreadful thunder from the screen. Such heavenly thunder was something Lin Jing, with his current cultivation, could not withstand at all, let alone endure for 1 or 2 breaths. That was even more impossible. At this moment, the lightning arcs were still gathering, and that sense of danger was growing stronger and stronger, to the point where even Lin Jing's cultivation began to waver. Under the influence of this heavenly thunder, his cultivation could hardly be suppressed. As the heavenly thunder was about to finish gathering, the formation, at this moment, bound Lin Jing in place. He found himself unable to even move his body. Lin Jing then hastily summoned the system. Before the descent of the heavenly thunder, he entered the system space. Only after entering the system space did Lin Jing let out a sigh of relief. He then immediately activated observation mode to observe the outside situation. Although Lin Jing had disappeared from the 81st step, the heavenly thunder still struck down accurately. The thunder kept bombarding the ground of the 81st step. In observation mode, seeing this heavenly thunder made Lin Jing's heart quail. This heavenly thunder was not as simple as the golden core thunder tribulation. Lin Jing only knew that this heavenly thunder was very strong, far beyond what he could endure at his current level. Perhaps because Lin Jing had vanished, the heavenly thunder continued unabated. This made Lin Jing dare not return to the 81st step. Left with no choice, Lin Jing changed his observation angle. However, while in observation mode, Lin Jing actually saw the top of the stone platform, which had been concealed by the formation before. At this moment, there was no formation protecting the top of the stone platform, only the vortex-like deep pool in the center. Lin Jing was instantly overjoyed. For the previous light screens, Lin Jing knew that this pool was the exit out. The other things, the immortal artifact and the infusing to become immortal. Needless to say, Lin Jing did not believe in them. They were definitely false, but this pool could very likely be real. After all, this was the only exit in the trial grounds. To confirm his suspicion, Lin Jing used observation mode to probe inside the deep pool. It was there, within the pool, that Lin Jing finally found a teleportation array. It seemed correct. That teleportation array was indeed the exit out. Following that, Lin Jing summoned the system and then spoke. System, use fixed-point teleportation. Afterward, Lin Jing chose to land next to the pool at the top of the stone platform. Once the choice was made, the system's voice came again. Fixed-point teleportation initiated. 1 harvest point consumed. Remaining harvest points, 8,807 harvest points. Immediately after, Lin Jing appeared at the designated location. Then, he looked back at the steps and discovered that the array was continuously supplying energy to the heavenly thunder, which was why the thunder hadn't stopped. Lin Jing also understood at this point that this was not some sort of trial grounds at all, but clearly a trap. Perhaps it had been a trial grounds before, but it was modified to be this way. However, now, Lin Jing had already escaped and naturally did not care about these things anymore. Afterward, Lin Jing turned back, took one last glance at the vast expanse of yellow sand, and then leaped directly into the deep pool. The azure sea stretched endlessly, so tranquil that not even a seabird was in sight. Yet upon this serene surface, suddenly a teleportation portal emerged from thin air, and from within, a robust figure tumbled down. With a splash, he fell into the sea. Sometime later, a person floated up to the surface. His skin was dark, his body extremely strong. It was none other than Lin Jing, who had just been transported from the Immortal Crossing Island. After being sent from Immortal Crossing Island, Lin Jing had landed straight into this sea. When Lin Jing felt the moist, salty breeze and the spiritual energy, which was much denser than that of the Naming domain, his heart couldn't help but swell with comfort. Appearing here meant that he had indeed left Immortal Crossing Island. A moment later, Lin Jing surfaced from the sea. As soon as Lin Jing had surfaced, a fish about 2 to 3 meters long, with its gaping maw, lunged at him, aiming to take a bite. Inside the mouth of the fish was a row of clean white teeth, glinting coldly, looking incredibly sharp. However, it seemed to have chosen the wrong target. Upon seeing the fish, Lin Jing appeared to be even more excited than it was. His face showed delight, and his eyes shone with anticipation as he stared at the fish, licking around his mouth eagerly. It had been a long time since he had tasted meat. In the desert for all these years, Lin Jing's days revolved solely around cultivation. The monotony of that life was nearly maddening. Though at Lin Jing's level of cultivation, he no longer needed to eat. Sometimes he still craved the taste of food. And this huge fish presenting itself upon his emergence provided an excellent chance for Lin Jing to partake in some meat. Lin Jing didn't hesitate, and, feeling the aura emanating from the fish, he realized that it was a demonic beast in the mid-stage of Foundation establishment. No wonder it was so bold as to consider Lin Jing its prey. As the fish attacked, a smile curled at the corners of Lin Jing's mouth, and he extended one arm. Indeed, seeing this, the fish opened its vast mouth and bit towards Lin Jing's arm. In the moment the fish snapped its jaws, Lin Jing hooked his fist, which glinted with a dark luster, and thrust it through the fish's gills from the side. In pain, the fish struggled desperately and tried to snap Lin Jing's arm with its sharp teeth. However, despite the sharpness of its teeth, they were no more effective than a tickling sensation against Lin Jing's skin and couldn't cause any harm. Actually, several of the fish's teeth were even broken in the process. Joking aside, after the arduous trials in the Immortal Crossing trial grounds, Lin Jing was now a bona fide, peak Foundation establishment body refinement cultivator. Even without using any spells, he could wrestle with any demonic beast at the peak of Foundation establishment. How could he fear a mere fish-based demonic beast in the mid-stage of Foundation establishment? But it must be said, this fish had significant strength. With no leverage in the water, Lin Jing saw he was being dragged back in the sea by the fish. Then, focusing power into his other hand, Lin Jing slammed a forceful punch on top of the fish's head. The fish rolled its eyes and passed out on the spot. Only then did Lin Jing breathe a sigh of relief. Next, Lin Jing took out his flawless sword and, soaring upon it, turned the fish around, grabbed its slender tail, and flew away from the area with it. Now, although he had come out from Immortal Crossing Island, in this boundless sea, Lin Jing did not know where he was. He had to find an island or some land first. Of course, it would be best if it were a place inhabited by humans, so he could ask around and determine his bearings. And so, Lin Jing, holding the fish, flew over the sea for several hours until twilight, when he finally spotted a small island. After a wave of joy, Lin Jing flew down to the island atop his sword. The island in the sea was not too large. From above, Lin Jing estimated it to be only a few hundred square kilometers. Several mountains rose sharply from the island, its greenery enveloping the peaks, with sea birds darting through the lush foliage. However, there were no signs of human habitation on the small island. Lin Jing sheathed his flawless sword and landed on the sandy beach at the edge of the island. After landing, Lin Jing looked around carefully, but didn't spot any dangers. Then, taking out his flawless sword again, he cleaned the fish quickly and efficiently. Afterward, he gathered a few straight branches to serve as a makeshift rack and set the fish upon it, starting a bonfire to roast his catch. Roasting fish was not the same as alchemy. Although he was cooking a demonic beast, using the flames from alchemy would likely have turned the whole fish to charcoal. So fire-making was a must when roasting a fish. After a period of turning and roasting, a rich aroma wafted from the slightly charred fish in front of him. Lin Jing found himself unable to resist salivating. It was just a pity that he did not bring any seasoning. Otherwise, the taste would have been even better with some added flavors. Just as Lin Jing was patiently waiting for the fish to cook through while fixating on it, a figure was flying towards the island over the sea ahead. Lin Jing sensed the presence of the newcomer, then looked up with a frown towards the approaching figure. This arriving figure had a strong aura, and judging by the momentum emanating from their body, they should be a cultivator at the early stage of the Golden Core. The figure approached swiftly, and in a short time, he was near the island. Lin Jing could now see that the flying man was a rather burly fellow, with muscles that were developed to the point they were almost on par with his own. Based on a man's original trajectory, he would have flown past not far from Lin Jing's front. However, upon spotting Lin Jing, he immediately altered his flight direction and headed straight towards Lin Jing. On this deserted and silent island, the sudden appearance of a Golden Core cultivator, especially one flying towards oneself, was not a good sign. Lin Jing immediately furrowed his brows and began to circulate his spiritual power in preparation for any unforeseen events. The burly man arrived above Lin Jing, retracted the bright silver spear he was flying on into his hand, and descended from the air, landing in front of Lin Jing. The man looked at Lin Jing, his eyes shining peculiarly as he sized him up from head to toe. Lin Jing felt uneasy under the burly man's gaze. Could this man have some peculiar hobby? Lin Jing wondered apprehensively to himself. The man seemed to understand Lin Jing's thoughts and quickly clarified. Don't misunderstand. I'm not interested in you. I just noticed that your body refining techniques seem quite extraordinary. Are you a body refinement cultivator? He then asked. Seeing that the man seemed to hold no hostility towards him, Lin Jing relaxed a tad and replied. In response to the senior, I indeed have practiced some body refining techniques. Nevertheless, faced with the Golden Core cultivator before him, he still maintained the respectful demeanor of a junior towards a senior. After all, Lin Jing was currently only at the foundation establishment stage. May I ask what brings the senior here? If there's anything I can help with, please do tell, Lin Jing said. No sooner had Lin Jing finished speaking than the burly man in front began to wave his hands disapprovingly. Given your cultivation, I guess you're close to undergoing tribulation, right? Once you successfully cross it, you'll be like me, a Golden Core cultivator as well. So, let's forget about the senior thing, to avoid any awkwardness in the future, he added. While they were talking, the smell of something burning suddenly filled the air. Both Lin Jing and the burly man looked down at the fish on the grill. It turned out that Lin Jing, preoccupied with talking to the burly man, had forgotten to turn the fish, which had now burned. Damn, the fish has burned, the burly man exclaimed, reacting even more strongly than Lin Jing. As he spoke, he stepped towards Lin Jing. This action left Lin Jing somewhat bewildered. Out of caution, Lin Jing still took 2 steps back. However, the burly man didn't seem to care as he walked straight up to the grilled fish and flipped it over. Upon seeing this, Lin Jing felt embarrassed. It turned out the man had come over to flip the fish. After flipping the fish, the man looked at the slightly charred areas with a hint of regret and said, "It's a shame about this good fish." He then reached into his storage bag and started pulling out several jars and bottles. Looking up at Lin Jing, he said, "You caught the fish, I'll provide the seasoning. We split the fish half and half, how about it?" Watching the somewhat simple-minded man, Lin Jing nodded and replied, "Of course that's fine." Upon receiving Lin Jing's agreement, the man grinned broadly and began seasoning the fish. It had to be said that this rough man seemed to know a thing or two about cooking. The seasonings hadn't been on for long before an overpowering aroma started to waft up irresistibly into the nostrils. Lin Jing, who had already been craving for several years, felt his hunger piqued even further by the smell, causing the worms in his stomach to act up. Gulp! Unable to contain himself, Lin Jing swallowed saliva and couldn't help but glance at the grilled fish. The burly man, who was seriously grilling the fish, was in the same boat as Lin Jing, continuously flipping the fish over. His eyes were fixated on the grilled fish, and Lin Jing could clearly see drool about to drip from his unconsciously open mouth. As the aroma of the grilled fish became thicker, its surface turned a complete golden brown. At that moment, the burly man picked up the grilled fish and declared, "It's ready." He then split the whole grilled fish down the middle. Taking half, he handed it over to Lin Jing. Upon receiving his share, Lin Jing didn't bother with formalities and bit into the fish. The alluring scent had made it hard for him to stay put while the fish was being grilled. He went for it without hesitation. Indeed, the man's cooking skills were excellent. With that first bite, the flavor was so delicious that Lin Jing almost wished he could swallow his own tongue. It was then the man introduced himself. "I'm the bull-headed warrior, Yin Wanfei. May I ask your name?" "Bull-headed warrior, Yin Wanfei." Lin Jing scrutinized the burly man with bewilderment, but nonetheless revealed his own name. Lin Jing. Facing Lin Jing's confusion, Yin Wanfei seemed already accustomed to it. He opened his mouth, bit off a large piece of fish, chewed it casually a couple of times, and then swallowed it directly. No sooner had he swallowed that bite than he took another large one. He ate ravenously, much faster than Lin Jing. After swallowing that mouthful, Yin Wanfei looked at Lin Jing and said seriously, "You don't have to look at me like that. I am indeed a demon cultivator with a green illusion demon ox as my original form. This title of Oxhead Warrior is the recognition I receive from my tribe." Lin Jing looked at Yin Wanfei, who seemed no different from an ordinary person. Not a hint of a demonic beast could be seen on him. Even the demonic aura was undetectable to Lin Jing. Thus, Lin Jing asked with confusion, "But, fellow Taoist Yin, you don't look like—" Yin Wanfei swallowed the fish in his mouth and then said proudly, "You can't tell, can you? Of course you can't. This is the innate mystical ability of our green illusion demon ox tribe, which allows us to change our form at will." As he spoke, a misty aura emanated from the green illusion demon ox, blurring his entire figure. After a while, the misty aura dissipated, and the green illusion demon ox before Lin Jing's eyes had changed. Now, in front of Lin Jing, another Lin Jing appeared. He heard this Lin Jing say, "Unless one's cultivation is far superior to ours, one simply cannot detect it." Having said this, the misty aura appeared once more, and Yin Wanfei changed back into the burly man he was before. Afterwards, Yin Wanfei spoke again. "In fact, it was after seeing you that I decided. I'm a man who speaks plainly. Brother Lin, I want to have a fight with you." Yin Wanfei ate as he spoke, but his words left Lin Jing completely speechless. A fight with him for no reason at all, and he was in the golden core stage, while Lin Jing was just a cultivator at the peak of foundation establishment. How could they fight? Although if Lin Jing really were to fight, he would not fear Yin Wanfei. But that would only be if they were enemies and used all means at their disposal. And since Yin Wanfei arrived here, he had shown no hostility towards him. Lin Jing simply didn't understand why Yin Wanfei wanted to fight with him. "Fellow Taoist Yin, I see you bear no ill will towards me. Why then do you wish to duel?" Facing Yin Wanfei, Lin Jing directly voiced his confusion. After speaking, he looked straight at Yin Wanfei, waiting for his answer. Yin Wanfei was stunned for a moment upon hearing this. Then, realizing the misunderstanding, he turned to Lin Jing and explained, "I didn't make myself clear before. To exchange pointers, just an exchange of moves, and without the use of spells, relying solely on physical prowess. Moreover, it's not right now, but after you advance to the Golden Core stage. It's just so hard to come across a body refinement cultivator. I want to test and see between our green illusion demon ox tribe's physique and that of you body refinement cultivators, which is stronger." Lin Jing was speechless for a moment, not expecting Yin Wanfei to be such a cultivation lunatic, to meet a stranger and dare to propose an exchange of pointers. His nerve was indeed unusually bold. One just wonders if the entire green illusion demon ox tribe was the same as he was. After that, Wanfei grinned and said to Lin Jing, "Brother Lin, I can sense that you must be close to undergoing your tribulation, right? Ever since I arrived to now, the aura around you has been becoming increasingly dense. This is the prelude to a tribulation. Brother Lin, rest assured, if you are to undergo tribulation, I will stay here as your protector, ensuring that no one disturbs you. After you advance to the Golden Core stage, we can have a proper exchange of pointers then." Looking at Wanfei's somewhat simple and honest appearance, Lin Jing found himself at a loss for words for a moment. However, Wanfei had not misspoken. Lin Jing was indeed about to undergo tribulation. After leaving Immortal Crossing Island, Lin Jing had finally relaxed, and the cultivation he had been suppressing began to loosen, about to break through the restraints he had placed upon it. If Lin Jing wished to continue the suppression, in fact, he still could for some time. But at this moment, it was indeed unnecessary. Hence, Lin Jing had released the suppression, allowing Wanfei to sense the aura of imminent breakthrough around him. Soon, the two of them finished eating. Wanfei stood up, brushed the sand from his clothes, and then chuckled. Being full feels comfortable. I remember when I was just a little calf. At this point, Wanfei suddenly stopped abruptly, bowing his head and muttering softly, "That was close. I almost forgot the warning about the wine." Afterward, Wanfei looked at Lin Jing and asked again, "Brother Lin, when do you plan to undergo the tribulation? I'd like to help you as your protector. If it's going to be a long wait, you might as well come with me to Beehive City. I have some matters to attend to there, and after I'm done, we can have our match." Faced with Wanfei's enthusiastic invitation, Lin Jing really felt overwhelmed and didn't know how to respond, so he could only force a dry laugh, and said, Yin, my fellow Taoist, you are truly too generous." Wanfei didn't mind and simply waved his hand, saying, "It's nothing. In this demonic monster sea, there are many demon cultivators who crave slaughter and follow no rules whatsoever. During tribulation, if one doesn't have a protector, these demon cultivators will seize the opportunity to launch surprise attacks and plunder those enduring their tribulation. This has happened many times here in the demonic monster sea, and having someone to act as a protector can make things much better. Is that so?" Lin Jing asked with a frown. Wanfei nodded as if it was only natural, saying, "Of course, you must know that this is the demonic monster sea. Aside from the few big sea cities, there are no rules to speak of anywhere else." After that, Lin Jing fell deep into thought. He had heard some things about the demonic monster sea before. The place was very chaotic, Lin Jing knew, but he never had a deep understanding of it. Having listened to Wanfei, Lin Jing finally began to truly feel the chaos of the demonic monster sea. It seemed that if one wished to survive here, cultivation was of utmost importance. However, Lin Jing was still somewhat wary of Wanfei. After all, this tribulation was unlike any other. Lin Jing needed to face the heavenly tribulation with all his might, and if someone were to interfere unexpectedly, it would put him in a passive position. Having thought it through, Lin Jing said to Wanfei, "Fellow Taoist Yin, I won't lie to you. I'm not quite ready yet. I intend to wait a bit longer to make more preparations. I'll begin the tribulation after some time, because the heavenly tribulation is no trifling matter." After hearing this, Wanfei nodded and said, "That's fine too. Brother Lin, since that's the case, then I will take my leave first." After speaking, Wanfei took out a jade pendant and handed it to Lin Jing, saying, "Brother Lin, this is a transmission jade. Take it with you when you go to Beehive City, and you can use it to contact me. Then we can still enjoy a couple of drinks together." "All right." Lin Jing accepted the transmission jade and replied. Afterward, Wanfei gave Lin Jing a few more instructions and then left the place. Not long after Wanfei's departure, Lin Jing left the small island by sword flight. After Lin Jing left, he continued to search for another uninhabited small island. He really was due for his tribulation. Wanfei seemed enthusiastic and apparently had no ill intent. However, Lin Jing had only spent a short time with Wanfei and was unclear about his character. Lin Jing did not like to entrust his safety to someone he was not familiar with. Thus, he used the excuse of postponing his tribulation to leave that place. Then, Lin Jing continued his search above the sea. This search went on for more than 10 days. During this time, he did come across several other small islands, but they clearly had signs of someone passing by frequently. Lin Jing chose not to settle on those islands and continued his search. Finally, he found a rarely visited small island at last, and there were no formidable demonic beasts on the island either. After finding the island, Lin Jing began his preparations. Earlier, on Immortal Crossing Island, Lin Jing had concocted a total of 3 flawless cultivation true elixirs. Now was the perfect time to make use of them. Lin Jing sat cross-legged on the small island, took a flawless cultivation true elixir, then released his cultivation, feeling the breath of heaven and earth. Given Lin Jing's present level of cultivation, it probably wouldn't take long for the heavenly tribulation to sense it, and then the tribulation clouds would come. This time, Lin Jing did not prepare anything for his tribulation other than elixir medicine. The reason for this was also related to Lin Jing's cultivation of the Overlord Divine Physique. For the Overlord Divine Physique to advance to the Golden Core stage, it was essential to endure the purification of the heavenly tribulation. This step was known as drawing lightning into the body. Using the domineering destructive power of the heavenly tribulation to reshape one's own body and fully unleash the potential within it. In fact, this was a necessary step for every body refinement cultivator. Spell cultivators rely on their own spells and magical treasures to withstand the heavenly tribulation, while body refinement cultivators have to physically withstand it, the danger of which is self-evident. If it were not so, there wouldn't be so few body refinement cultivators. And it was precisely because of this that Lin Jing wanted to find an uninhabited place to undergo the tribulation alone. An hour passed by. Lin Jing, occupied with circulating his cultivation technique and consolidating his cultivation, suddenly felt a terrifying pressure descending from the heavens and the earth. The pressure, originating between heaven and earth, felt different from the atmosphere of the trial grounds on Immortal Crossing Island. It came from all directions, as if the whole world was rejecting him. Especially Lin Jing, sitting on the island, felt it most acutely. In the sky, some black clouds began to form, and they were gathering directly above Lin Jing's head. Everything around him became eerily silent at this moment. Even the leaves on the island stopped stirring. For a time, the entire island and the surrounding area became extremely tense. As time slowly passed, the black clouds above Lin Jing's head grew thicker and more numerous, even surpassing the tribulation clouds of Elder Yu's previously endured tribulation. Yet even so, the thunder in the skies still did not descend. The black clouds continued to gather. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Soon, some more time passed. Lin Jing frowned, looking up at the sky. At this moment, the small island where Lin Jing was located was shrouded in darkness, because the tribulation clouds had already enveloped the entire island within. These tribulation clouds were 3 times the size of those from Elder Yu's tribulation. At this time, within the tribulation clouds, Lin Jing saw countless flashes of lightning. The sound of rumbling was also constant. Yet, the tribulation lightning did not descend. It stayed this way, which made Lin Jing somewhat uneasy. Just at that moment, suddenly, the lightning within the tribulation clouds disappeared in an instant, and the rolling tribulation clouds also paused. Then, with a crack, a loud noise was heard. A white tribulation lightning struck down directly from the tribulation clouds. The thickness of this tribulation lightning completely submerged Lin Jing. Lin Jing had never anticipated that the power of this first lightning strike would be so strong. The tribulation lightning fell from the clouds, directly striking Lin Jing. It was at this moment that Lin Jing activated his Overlord Divine Physique hastily absorbing the power of this tribulation lightning and gathering it within the acupuncture points of his body. At this time, the dark light reflecting off Lin Jing's body shone even brighter. It seemed that it was this layer of dark light that had reduced some of the power of the descending tribulation lightning. This first strike of tribulation lightning lasted only for a moment before dissipating. After the pillar of lightning had dissipated, Lin Jing's body was suddenly covered with dense lightning arcs, enveloping his entire body. These lightning arcs were formed from the heavenly tribulation power that Lin Jing had just absorbed into his acupuncture points. The Overlord divine physique was indeed extraordinary, and although Lin Jing had never seen other body refining techniques, he felt that they were probably different from the Overlord divine physique. After all, Lin Jing had felt from the beginning of his cultivation that the creator of this technique must be no ordinary individual. When the lightning arcs on Lin Jing's body slowly diminished and then disappeared, the sound, rumbling, was heard from the sky as the tribulation clouds kept making noise. Afterward, there was another crackling sound. This time, another bolt of tribulation lightning struck down. This second bolt of tribulation lightning was almost the same as the first one. But this second bolt of tribulation lightning lasted for twice as long. Under this second strike of tribulation lightning, the layer of dark light flickering on Lin Jing's body became even brighter. And Lin Jing also activated the Overlord divine physique to its full strength, continuing to absorb the power of the tribulation lightning. It wasn't until the tribulation lightning ceased that Lin Jing, just like before, released the tribulation lightning power accumulated in his acupuncture points, repeatedly tempering his body. However, just at that moment, two figures suddenly appeared from afar, flying towards the island. These two people, even when they were still very far from the island, had already stopped in their tracks. The two of them looked at the tribulation clouds above the small island, their brows deeply furrowed. "Brotherly, shall we go for it?" One of the men in black robes, looking at Lin Jing, who was undergoing tribulation, turned his head to ask the other man who had a scar on his face. The scar-faced man looked at the rolling tribulation clouds, and his furrowed brows never relaxed. Who exactly is the one undergoing tribulation to be able to trigger such a fierce, heavenly tribulation? The man in black robes also looked towards the tribulation clouds covering the entire island and spoke with furrowed brows. From this energy, it should only be the golden core tribulation. Yet this golden core tribulation is indeed a bit exaggerated. Afterward, the two of them turned their gaze to Lin Jing under the tribulation clouds. However, because they were too far away, they couldn't make out Lin Jing's appearance and could only see his robust stature. But they also didn't dare to move any closer, fearing being affected by the heavenly tribulation. "Brotherly, with that figure, could it be a body refinement cultivator?" the man in black robes said. "Very likely." The other scar-faced man nodded slightly, then continued. "Look at his side. There isn't a single magical treasure to protect himself." "This," the man in black robes inhaled sharply as he observed Lin Jing. Indeed, just at that moment, another bolt of tribulation lightning struck down from the sky. This third bolt of lightning lasted even longer than the second one, a full 3 moments. Upon seeing this tribulation lightning, the two people watching Lin Jing's tribulation from a distance were utterly dumbfounded. Such fierce tribulation lightning, even merely looking at it, made their scalps tingle. It wasn't until the tribulation lightning had vanished that Lin Jing, who remained in place, was still intact. Seeing this scene, the two onlookers fell silent. Because the two had not concealed their presence when they arrived, Lin Jing was aware of their arrival. However, Lin Jing, who was currently undergoing tribulation, truly did not have the energy to concern himself with the two of them. Moreover, the two observers were only watching from a distance and had not launched an attack on Lin Jing. Therefore, Lin Jing also did not pay attention to them. After the third bolt of tribulation lightning, Lin Jing continued to temper his body just as before. At this moment, blood had begun to seep from Lin Jing's body. It was the result of the third thunderbolt of Tribulation. However, these wounds weren't large, and after not too long, they healed on their own. Ever since he began cultivating the Overlord divine physique, Lin Jing's physical strength had increased, and at the same time, his self-healing ability had also improved significantly. For such small wounds, there was no need to attend to them. They would heal automatically before long. After the third thunderbolt had passed, the fourth was delayed in its arrival. The tribulation clouds in the sky loomed over Lin Jing's head like dark clouds pressing down on a city. Currently, within those tribulation clouds, the rumbling sounds were incessant, and amidst the tribulation clouds, not only were there white bolts of tribulation thunder, but also some blue arcs of lightning rolling continuously with them. Crack! A sudden sound, both urgent and swift. Within the sky's tribulation clouds, the thunderbolt was no longer just white, but also interwoven with blue lightning. This thunderbolt struck down directly at Lin Jing. In that instant, Lin Jing's flesh burst open with numerous wounds, unlike those caused by the third thunderbolt. The longest of those wounds was several inches long. This thunderbolt came swiftly and vanished just as quickly. After the thunderbolt disappeared, Lin Jing once again circulated his cultivation technique, utilizing the power of the heavenly tribulation to temper himself. Under Lin Jing's continuous tempering, his body gradually began to transform, and the dark light reflecting on his body grew increasingly bright, seemingly ready to begin evolving. At this time, in the distance, the two cultivators who were watching Lin Jing undergo his tribulation fell silent. They had seen golden core tribulations before, but never one as strong as this. Just as the two of them were silent, another urgent and swift thunderbolt slashed down. This thunderbolt, carrying even more of those blue arcs, almost completely enveloped the white thunderbolt in the middle. Soon after this thunderbolt disappeared. Even from a great distance, the two could clearly see that Lin Jing's entire body had almost turned red. At this moment, the man in the black robe asked the scarred cultivator named Li, "Brother Li, that man has been injured. Shall we still go through with this heist?" As he spoke, he continued to gaze in Lin Jing's direction, adding, "Moreover, I see no protectors around this area." The scarred cultivator named Li furrowed his brows, pondered for a moment, and then spoke. "Let's leave. This job is beyond us. His heavenly tribulation is too strong. We cannot interfere at all. Besides, this is our first encounter with such a tribulation. We're not clear on the specific range of its response. If we're not careful and get caught in the tribulation, I fear both of us will be reduced to ashes." After the scarred man spoke, the man in the black robe also furrowed his brow, looking towards the island where Lin Jing was facing his tribulation. These two were actually the demon cultivators spoken of by Wanfei, who specially targeted those undergoing tribulation. There are many cultivators in the demonic monster sea, and many places are extremely chaotic, and many cultivators, wishing to undergo their tribulation, would choose a quiet place where no one would disturb them. This included many loose cultivators. Most of these loose cultivators were loners with few friends, if any at all. And these demon cultivators specifically chose to strike at them during their tribulation, either threatening or outright attacking to cause trouble for those in the middle of their tribulation, in order to gain benefits from those undergoing tribulation. As the tribulating cultivators needed to deal with the heavenly tribulation above, they dared not be negligent. So, they would generally agree to any terms put forth by these demon cultivators. Of course, these demon cultivators were mostly not to be trifled with. Sometimes, even after gaining benefits, they would still interfere to cause the cultivator's tribulation to fail, or even to be utterly destroyed. Such incidents commonly occurred in the demonic monster sea, let alone those loose cultivators without anyone to act as their protectors. Even sometimes when there were protectors, if the protector's cultivation was not high enough, these demon cultivators would dare to kill and rob nonetheless. However, they had now encountered Lin Jing. The heavenly tribulation that Lin Jing was undergoing was unheard of by them. The span of the tribulation clouds above him was the widest they had ever seen, and if they approached too closely, it was easy to become enveloped by the range of the tribulation, which could lead to fire burning one's own body, unintentionally undergoing tribulation themselves. Therefore, they did not dare to rashly approach and disturb Lin Jing's tribulation. After all, though they wanted to kill and plunder, they did not want to risk their own lives in the process. Watching yet another thunderbolt descend, even from this great distance, the man in the black robe could still feel the terror of the thunderbolt. At that moment, an idea flashed in the mind of the man in the black robe, who then said to the scarred cultivator named Li, "Brotherly, I have a plan." The scarred cultivator turned his head to look at the man in the black robe and asked, "What plan?" The man in the black robe said, "Actually, we don't have to disturb him at all. Seeing his condition, the likelihood of him getting through this heavenly tribulation doesn't seem very high. We can set up a surveillance array plate nearby to monitor his every move. If he fails the tribulation, once the heavenly tribulation dissipates, we can go onto the island to check for things like storage bags left behind. If he succeeds, he will surely be gravely wounded. At that point, we can simply commit murder and robbery. If he truly emerges unscathed, then we'll just leave. There's no need to find discomfort for ourselves. Anyone who can get through such a tribulation unscathed is not someone we can afford to provoke." After finishing, the man in the black robe glanced once again at Lin Jing, who had been injured anew, and said, "However, judging by the looks of it, that third possibility doesn't exist." The scarred cultivator, hearing this, nodded and replied, "Perfect, we'll do as you suggest." After the sixth tribulation lightning struck, Lin Jing's injuries had become more severe than before. Several of the wounds he sustained this time had already cut deep to the bone. It was not until then that Lin Jing reached into his storage bag and took out a pure body restoration pill, swallowing it. No sooner had the pure body restoration pill entered his mouth than it dissolved into a pure medicinal strength that flowed into his stomach. Afterward, that concentrated medicinal strength began to disperse throughout his body. It was at this moment that Lin Jing felt a wave of heat all over his body, and a tingling and somewhat itchy sensation came from the wounds. Clearly, the pure body restoration pill had started to take effect. Apart from the rejuvenation elixir, there were still numerous blue lightning arcs chaotically coursing through his body, including within the wounds. Lin Jing's injuries had just begun to heal somewhat when the lightning arcs at the wounds flashed past, worsening the healing wounds even further. Yet even so, Lin Jing still did not stop. He released the heavenly tribulation power he had absorbed to temper his body. Should one observe closely, they could discover, although the lightning arcs exacerbated Lin Jing's injuries, they seemingly activated the potential in his body. Instead of slowing down, the rate of injury recovery had become even faster after repeated purifications by the lightning arcs. The layer of dark light that cloaked Lin Jing's body began to change in color, appearing to have added some yellow compared to before. And at this time, Lin Jing noticed that the two cultivators who had been observing him from a distance had left the area. Seeing this, Lin Jing let out a sigh of relief. As long as there was no interference, Lin Jing had at least a 90% chance of overcoming this tribulation. Perhaps even Lin Jing himself did not expect that it was not that no one wanted to interfere, but rather they dared not. Afterward, Lin Jing put away his thoughts and stopped paying attention to the two who had left. Instead, he looked up at the sky, ready for the next strike of tribulation lightning. With only the last 3 bolts of tribulation lightning remaining, Lin Jing would be able to overcome this heavenly tribulation. However, these last 3 bolts of tribulation lightning seemed to be not so easy to deal with. As it happened, Lin Jing had been waiting for a long time, but the tribulation clouds still had not released any lightning. Instead, they continued to brew ominously. Accompanied by an ever-escalating oppressive and terrifying aura, the upcoming tribulation lightning would likely be exceedingly difficult to bear. Moreover, in those tribulation clouds, in addition to the blue lightning arcs, a new kind of red lightning arc had appeared. The aura transmitted by this red lightning arc was even more terrifying than that of the blue ones. Lin Jing was no longer complacent by this point. Instead, he once again took out a rejuvenation elixir, placed it in his mouth, and wrapped it in spiritual power, ready to swallow at a critical moment. Then he began to run the Immortal 5 Elements technique, consolidating the spiritual power within his body and covering his entire body to resist the forthcoming lightning attack. Since Lin Jing had not prepared any other defensive magical treasures for the Tribulation in advance, he had to rely on himself in this way. Fortunately, Lin Jing's body was robust enough, even stronger than the average defensive magical treasure. Therefore, even without pre-prepared defensive magical treasures, Lin Jing could still rely on the strength of his body to survive this heavenly tribulation. Just as Lin Jing's recovery was nearly complete, the dark tribulation clouds in the sky started to stir once again. Booming thunder, a blue tribulation lightning bolt, mixed with a hint of red arcs, descended from the sky. This bolt of tribulation lightning was twice as thick as the sixth one and engulfed Lin Jing completely as it struck down from above his head. 3 breaths later, the lightning dissipated. Around Lin Jing, everything was scorched black, except for the spot where he sat. Even the ground around him had collapsed. And Lin Jing, seated there, was also in a bad way. The recent strike had added many more wounds to his body. Even his bones had broken in several places under the assault of the lightning. Seizing the moment, Lin Jing quickly swallowed the pure body restoration pill in his mouth. Not daring to delay, he hurriedly absorbed its medicinal strength for healing. However, just then, the tribulation clouds in the sky became active again. The thunderous noise within the tribulation clouds, which had been rumbling moments before, suddenly came to an abrupt halt. In an instant, the entire world became eerily silent, without any sound. Lin Jing had a bad feeling. Then, he quickly recited in his mind, "System, activate the enhancement possession feature." Lin Jing had not planned to use this feature just yet, but seeing the posture of the tribulation lightning, it seemed that it was not going to be easy to endure. After activating the enhancement possession, Lin Jing immediately felt his divine sense become incredibly sharp. Even the speed at which he ran his spiritual power to repair his injuries had significantly increased. However, at that moment, the sky suddenly flashed. Booming thunder. An even thicker column of tribulation lightning descended from the tribulation clouds. This column of lightning was wholly blue, with the outermost layer being a dense red lightning arc, which was nearly forming a red, electrified screen. This 8th strike of tribulation lightning came too suddenly, and it did not give Lin Jing much time to prepare. Lin Jing, still unrecovered from his injuries, was forced to confront the 8th strike of tribulation lightning. Just like before, the 8th lightning engulfed Lin Jing completely. It wasn't until after 3 breaths that the 8th lightning, having exhausted its accumulated heavenly tribulation power, finally dissipated. Only after the lightning had vanished did Lin Jing's figure reappear. At that moment, there was not a single unscathed spot on Lin Jing's body. Many areas revealed stark white bones, and even on his chest, shoulders, and back, there were large patches charred black. Moreover, across Lin Jing's body, those red lightning arcs continuously darted about. Lin Jing looked in terrible shape, yet the corners of his mouth still curled up, revealing a bitter smile. Lin Jing was aware that his condition was dire. After the lightning had dissipated, he hastily took out a pure body restoration pill from his storage bag and stuffed it into his mouth. He had to recover his injuries as much as possible before the final lightning strike descended. After swallowing the pure body restoration pill, Lin Jing began to meditate intently, seeking to heal his wounds. While Lin Jing was meditating, the red lightning arcs left cracks at the wounds they touched, from which blood oozed out. However, under the repair of the Overlord divine Physique and the pure body restoration pill, those wounds were visibly closing at a slow pace. During this destructive and restorative process, minuscule almost imperceptible golden specks began to emerge from within Lin Jing's flesh, and they assisted in healing the injuries. Furthermore, the dark glow that had covered Lin Jing's body was changing to gold at a visible speed. Lin Jing, who was healing, naturally noticed this phenomenon. Lin Jing understood that the emergence of the golden light indicated that his Overlord divine physique was about to advance to the golden core stage. Once the dark light on Lin Jing's body completely turned to gold, he would be a golden core stage body refinement cultivator. The black tribulation clouds in the sky were tumbling as violently as before. The aura emanating from the clouds became even more terrifying, as if the sky were about to collapse, looming over Lin Jing's head and sending shivers through his heart. This final bolt of lightning was still brewing. Within the churning clouds, white and blue flashes of lightning could no longer be seen, replaced entirely by the dreadfully red lightning. And with the clouds' increasingly violent motion, the red lightning appeared with increasing frequency. Rumble, rumble. Continuous muffled sounds came from within the clouds. As the atmosphere in the sky grew increasingly oppressive, Lin Jing could no longer afford to continue healing his wounds. By this time, his injuries had mostly recovered, and the charred flesh that had once covered his body had sloughed off, revealing new skin beneath. Nevertheless, the final bolt of lightning arrived abruptly, without any warning. Just as Lin Jing was about to take another pure body restoration pill from his storage bag as a precaution, the clouds, which had been rumbling a moment before, suddenly released a column of red lightning, followed only then by a tremendous roar of thunder. Boom! By the time Lin Jing heard the sound, he had already been engulfed by the red pillar of lightning. As the red lightning struck Lin Jing, his head reeled as if suddenly hit, dazing him momentarily. However, fortunately, Lin Jing's divine sense was incredibly strong, and that was under the augmenting effects. The daze was but a fleeting moment, and Lin Jing quickly recovered to normal. Yet the red tribulation lightning was not as devastating upon impact as he had imagined. Although it still inflicted considerable damage on Lin Jing, its destructive power was nowhere near that of the eighth lightning. Lin Jing felt as if there was something different within the strike, aiding him in absorbing the heavenly tribulation power. Inside Lin Jing's dantian, the Tao foundation formed by innumerable spiritual power began to change. The spiritual power, like a vortex, devoured all other spiritual power, and this devoured power started to transform slowly. It was then that Lin Jing realized the final bolt of lightning was targeting the soul spirit. If the soul spirit were not steadfast, just one stroke of this lightning would be enough to annihilate both soul and body, resulting in death and the end of one's Tao. This last lightning lasted for a long 9 breaths, even twice as long as the 8th lightning. When the final bolt of lightning dissipated, the ground around Lin Jing showed no drastic change, still a charred crater, with the only untouched spot being where Lin Jing sat. However, there was a significant transformation on Lin Jing's body. The most noticeable change was that the dark light which had shone over Lin Jing's body had now turned completely golden, making Lin Jing appear as though he was enveloped in a golden radiance. Furthermore, the wounds on Lin Jing's body, after being refined by the last bolt of lightning, had vanished without a trace. Only his tattered, blood-stained clothing bore witness to his previous dishevelment. Apart from these changes, the most significant change was Lin Jing's cultivation. At this moment, Lin Jing had become a true golden core immortal.